Hi, I'm Norm Shearer, Partner and Chief Creative Officer here at Cactus. I've been teaching and mentoring creative students and creative directing for close to 25 years. So we'll be bringing together those mentors, students, and teachers to try to be helpful and learn some new tricks for creative students that are trying to break into that first elusive job. Welcome to Noobs. Let's learn something.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to Noobs. Introducing Charlotte Garrett, a fellow CU buff. Go Buffs.
Yes, go
Or
Buffs.
SCO Buffs, as I should say. So obviously as an alumni, I'm probably a little biased having my first guest be a CU student, but hey, I have all the power, Charlotte. I have all the power. So, but hey, maybe just, you're a recent graduate and originally from Chicago, but obviously love Colorado and your CU experience. Maybe you could just give us just a quick background on Charlotte and how you got into advertising. Like, where did you catch the bug and when did the light bulb go on with advertising and art direction?
Yeah, cool. So I'm Charlotte. I am from Chicago. I came to CU and I started studying as a communications major, and then I decided to switch over into strategic communications, where I took a history of advertising class as well as I think it was just like a normal PR class, but in the PR class, I was introduced to the absolute ads where they're kind of shaped into the bottle. And,
Yeah.
I kind of had already fallen in love with advertising, and I saw that and I was like, oh, I want to be the person who is behind the creation of that. So love that. And then I did history of advertising and I fell in love with Think Small, Volkswagen ad. That definitely is where I caught
Wow,
my
all the classics, like old stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I love it all. And then I also thought it was really funny. I learned about mouthwash and how they used to lie to people and manipulate people into thinking that they had like a disease in their mouth and that they needed to use mouthwash. And I just thought that was so like mind boggling.
You mean the bad side of advertising? Yeah. When
Yeah, I was like,
when we use our powers for evil, not for good.
yeah. It was very enticing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think, for other students and even other teachers, teaching students and mentors out there, appreciate you taking some time to just share your experiences and your points of view. And recently you just went to, after graduation, like not very long after celebrating graduation, which congrats, by the way, but you hopped right on a plane and kind of put your nose to the grindstone and got busy right away, networking, starting that. You put your portfolio together, you've got all these things, you're kind of armed to the teeth, ready to go find that job. But it's interesting to me that you made the choice to go do a tour of LA and San Francisco in person. Could you talk a little bit about that and why you chose to do that in person?
Yeah, so I chose to do that in person. One, I'm a very spontaneous person. I love taking spontaneous trips. I've done it before. It's very fun. Two, I wanted to get hired. So I was, I was like, okay, me being there in person is going to show dedication, passion, being able to, look them in the eye, shake their hands, introduce myself, and give them a little gift so that, they can remember me, which is a great thing for students to do, that if you do end up going to agencies, bring something that you can leave behind, because then it's like, it sits on their desk and they always remember that time that you came there and you took the time to come out and meet them in person. And then it is worth it because they will remember you. You're leaving a piece of you there that is a constant reminder of this dedication and this passion that you have. And
That's
my
awesome.
whole thing is collages. So I made a California collage, and then I wrote them on the back. I wrote like, let's embrace the beauty and let's embrace the beauty and messiness together, with just like all my contact info.
I was
So
wondering
that,
if you were going to share what you did or if that was sort of like you're keeping that under wraps. But thanks for sharing. That's
no,
really cool.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun. It
Yeah.
was super fun.
I think it's important whether it's pre-interview. I mean, I've gotten things as a hiring, senior creative director and all that. Um, I really enjoy if it's thoughtfully done. I really enjoy getting something either in the mail or something kind of unexpected versus just the traditional LinkedIn or email and here's my portfolio, here's my resume. I love it when students or young creatives kind of go above and beyond and do something that's thoughtful, not cheesy. You do have to be careful that you walk the line there. But when you share something that I might keep at my desk or show to the rest of my team, I think those things, when they're done well and they're genuine and they feel personable, they're they're very effective and very good. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're trying to get to know the people we want to hire. So
Yeah.
just like another way to kind of, as you said, you put a little piece of you out there.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Why specifically LA and San Francisco?
So I chose to go to LA and San Francisco simply just because my teacher, Jeff, who will probably end up being on this podcast,
Yeah.
he set me up a couple
Jeff
weeks
Gillette.
ago. He set, yeah, Jeff Gillette, yes. He set a bunch of us, his students, up a couple weeks ago. I guess it was probably like 6 weeks ago now. It was a while ago, but it was I met with a bunch of people who were in California. So then all those meetings kind of sparked this. And then I went to Fortnite Collective, which is a agency in Boulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the girls had mentioned that they all share their, like, how do they get their foot in the door. And this one girl was like, I pretty much lied to a bunch of agencies, and I told them like these dates and that I was going to be there, and I hoped that they would, invite me in to meet them in person and get a tour. And the second I heard that, I was like, that sounds like something I would do. And then I went home and I was like, I'm just going to email people these dates. And I booked my flight and hotel room 3 days before I left.
Wow.
So I planned the whole trip around the meetings that I had.
That's awesome. That's probably the best way to do it too, because the whole point you're there is to do that, right? Not to
Yes.
go to the
I would
beach.
recommend doing that. I did go to the beach. Did I definitely have some fun.
Fringe benefit, but that's not the priority, right? Yeah.
Yes. Definitely, I think it's important too that if you do end up taking that trip, explore the city and the culture, because if it goes well and they want to hire you, you also need to be able to know if you want to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like the agencies you met with. It's okay to name names. We're not play favorites here, but the agencies you met with, and just how did that feel like a success? Did you get enough agencies, enough informational interviews, even that it felt like the time and money investment of going out there was worth it?
I would say if you do it, I would try to meet with at least 4, because that's a lot. That kind of makes it worth it.
And you did what, a week and a half about that you were there?
I did
or a few days in each city, right?
Yeah, I did Wednesday through Tuesday morning. I was in LA, and then I flew, Tuesday morning, and then I flew to SF Tuesday. I was there Wednesday, and then I flew back to Colorado on Thursday.
So pretty quick.
Yeah,
pretty quick.
It was a week.
Yeah. Okay.
But I got to meet with 6 agencies. For students thinking about maybe doing this, I recommend going Monday through like Sunday morning, and then Monday through Friday you can go and you can work and meet people and go to agencies, and then Saturday you can go and explore the city, and then you go home and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed. Yeah.
Was there any learnings from like the days of the week to kind of go, like, are certain days better than others?
Yeah, I definitely learned that not a lot of people are in office Mondays and Fridays.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fridays especially. Yeah.
Yeah, especially Fridays. So how my trip kind of worked out is I had 4 on Thursday, and then I met with a freelancer on Monday, and then I did another agency tour on Tuesday morning, and then I headed to the airport right after that, and that was TBWA out in LA. And then I went to Goodby on Wednesday, and I met with another freelancer. So mine was kind of like, in total, I did have an agency tour each day, which is what I would recommend. But mine was just kind of compacted all into like the first day.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a very fun first day.
Drinking from the fire hose. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And it's
awesome.
definitely a little bit of a, not really a humbling experience, but you have to go in there being like, I don't know anything, like, teach me. You know, you can't have this like a, like, hire me or else I'll hate you kind of like
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And I think something, not to step on your toes here of your advice and your observations, but something I kind of always preach to my students is maybe don't even approach interviews as trying to get hired. Do a little bit of a Jedi mind trick on yourself. I know I mentioned this to your class
Mm-hmm.
several times during the portfolio reviews we had of like, go into it just trying to network, and almost even if there's a spot open and they brought you in for a position, if you approach it with the mindset of almost like an informational interview and wanting to learn about the people that you're meeting with, their role, the agency, the clients they work on, the values of the
Mm-hmm.
agency, their individual values, the more you can try to like just be in that mindset of learning and being
Yeah.
curious tends to set you up, I think, for better interview energy
Yeah.
than going in with
Definitely.
like a gimme, 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 kind of
Yeah.
give me a job
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
that can happen. That
Definitely.
I've done probably thousands of interviews, and you definitely, as an interviewer, you pick up on that energy
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah. It's definitely, you just got to go into it being like, I just want to learn. And then, send them a follow up, make sure that, you give them a little gift. And you don't have to give like everyone a gift. I would recommend giving it to, like, I gave mine to like the creative talent recruiters at the agencies that I went to. And then if I had an extra one, I would, I would just
yeah,
pass them and I'd be like, here, have this.
yeah.
And then
Was
I would
it,
like
tell me a
deliver
little
them.
bit about your experience with the different agencies. Like I just realized that I'm sure there's different vibes and mojo
Oh, yeah.
at
Yeah.
the different agencies. And was that unexpected, or was that something that you kind of assumed you would see going into it?
Yeah. So I would say I definitely assumed I didn't have a lot of expectations because I've only ever been to agencies in Boulder or Denver, which just tend to be, smaller. I would say Cactus is probably the biggest agency that I have
Wow.
visited in person prior to this trip. So I definitely went in, being like, I have no idea what this is going to be like. The big shops are big. They are
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are much bigger than I thought they would be. I would say the biggest ones are Saatchi Saatchi, TBWA, and Goodby. And then Mother and David and Goliath were smaller. David and Goliath is pretty big, but the culture made it feel small.
That's cool.
But it's definitely,
And it's cool that you're able to just pick up on that by being there.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. I would say, me personally, I like the smaller shops, but I also know people who prefer the bigger shops. So it's really, it's good to make sure that you visit a small place and a big place so that you can know what is right for you.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Again, that would be another thing that would be might be really hard to pick up on or to kind of
Hmm.
glean from
Yeah.
a video interview, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've met with some people at Goodby, and you're looking at a one wall of like 100 walls of the building. So
Did you have any learnings that you'd be willing to be a little vulnerable and share where like something didn't go well and you're like, oh, note to self, I should never do that again? Like interview wise or logistics wise, anything you could share?
Yes. I was meeting with these two people, and it was like my last day, and it was in SF, like after I had been traveling the day before. And there's so many names going through my head. And I met with these two people for coffee. And one of them was the head of like the media production department, and the other one was a
Wow.
mid-level art director. And I, the senior like head of production lady, for some reason I thought she was an account person, and she was telling me her story, and I was like, oh, how did you get into that from account? And then she was like, oh no, I'm the blah 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 blah. And the whole time I was just sitting in my head, and I go, I knew that. Like
You
I
blew
knew
your
that.
research. Yeah.
I blew my research, yeah. So I would say, don't do that.
Well, that sounds like a fairly forgivable flub, actually, in the grand scheme of things. But I think a good, again, it's thanks for sharing because I think that's
Yeah,
a good note of do your research, know who you're meeting with on an individual level. I mean, obviously, if they bring somebody in unexpected,
yeah,
then I think it's
yeah,
fair game to ask, hey, what do you do? You know,
yeah.
what's your role? But if you know you're meeting with one or two people specifically,
Hmm.
it's not weird to go, do research on them on LinkedIn. I find it, I mean, I guess it's kind of understandable, but I always am kind of blown away about how many students are a little bit apprehensive about doing research and digging on
Yeah.
individuals as opposed to companies because I think they feel like it's an invasion of privacy or that they're snooping or it's a little creepy. And in the professional world, it's not at all. Like we do it with clients, we do it all the time, when we're researching artist partners that we're going to work with or whatever. You have, this thing, the internet, right, is
Yeah.
amazing, and LinkedIn and social media to help us quantum leap and understand what makes people
Yes.
tick.
Yeah.
Or the values that someone might have. So understanding a little background on who you're meeting with is really key. And I think it's okay that you
Yes. Yes.
flubbed it. At least you understand the difference between account and production. So
That's true. That's the positive way of thinking about it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I would definitely, the advice that I would give is stalk people. Like stalk.
Pleasantly, yeah, not
But
creepily.
yes, not
Yeah,
creepily, but like stalk people's LinkedIn, and if you meet them and you're like, oh, like I saw like this one dude that I met with was a sales representative for Nike, and I was a sales representative for not Nike because that's pretty cool. But I was just a sales representative, but it was an instant conversation starter where in the beginning you're like, hi,
yeah,
hi, like blah, blah, nice to meet you. And it is a little bit like, okay, how do I jump into this? And if you have that connection with them, then it's like, it instantly starts a conversation, and then you can kind of move the conversation into, okay, advertising.
yeah. That's
It's like a
awesome.
nice way to like ease into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like sort of helps you reduce your own nervousness, right? And
Oh
gives
yeah.
you
Yeah.
a way in to kind of get
Yeah.
going. So you're not
Yeah.
just sitting there sweating bullets. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You
Charlotte,
probably
it
will
sounds
still be.
well, sure, yeah. That's natural. And it shows you, as my mom said, you're nervous because you care. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
Um, thanks to all the moms and all their advice.
Yes.
So that's great, Charlotte. It sounds like that trip was pretty successful then. So what are kind of next steps then from coming out of some of those interviews?
Yeah, so I would say next steps are I've gotten some callbacks, I've gotten some second interviews. Doing that definitely it was also from the place that I like the most. So it kind of just really, that's why it's important to go there in person, is, feel it out, because you don't want to take a job and you shouldn't take a job that you don't want to take. Um, I am currently waiting to hear back from them, because if I, if they can't afford financially to bring on another person, they just can't, and that's just how it is. Um,
Yeah.
so that's also where the, be patient comes in. And
Yeah.
I was supposed to hear back yesterday, but it just turns out that, they need they pretty much were like, it's a matter of time,
Yeah.
or it's a matter of when, not if. So that's kind of another piece of advice I would give students, is that's like a big phrase in this industry. It's not a matter of if, but when. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that is very good news. And I would just second that advice too, that sometimes agencies go into a season where they have a budget or they have a specific roles that they need to fill. And things change. Maybe something happens where they need to cut that in half or double it, or what, like something changes in literally this industry. Things can change day to day or week to week. And so with, on the business side. And so sometimes you just are unlucky and interviews go great and you're the one, but the timing's not right. So
yeah.
I think just being patient, staying positive, staying pleasantly in touch with people,
Yes.
you know, being consistent with communication, but not overdoing it either, and coming off desperate. All those things are important. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
another great topic about kind of follow-ups on interviews. So also, I'd be curious to know, did you meet with any specifically recruiters, talent recruiters, either within agency or outside of the agency? And how did those differ in any way from meeting with, senior level creatives or someone within the creative department that was hiring?
Yeah, so I definitely went into it, you know, like we said, know who you're talking to. So I went into it knowing if I was talking to a recruiter or a CD creative director, or an art director or a copywriter. I also met with those. I met with a recruiter at Mother, Saatchi and Saatchi. Deutsch, I met with like some art directors. I think I met with a junior art director, a senior art director, and then a creative director. Um, and then David and Goliath, I got to meet with the recruiter. And I got to meet with the recruiter at TBWA. So really and the recruiter at Goodby. So really the only recruiter I didn't get to meet was Deutsch, but something you should also, piece of advice I would give is, when you're sending your follow-up email, say, is there anyone else you see fit for me to talk to?
Great suggestion. Yeah.
And it's like, if you want to know the recruiter, just ask. Just be like, is there any chance, you could intro me over to the recruiter at blank agency? Because you met them, you took the time to fly out there, meet them. You should be able to ask for what you want.
It's all about building your
And
network. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And it's like, don't be afraid to ask. Like, if they don't answer, they don't answer, and go and stalk the company and find them yourself,
Yeah.
and reach out. Reach
And
out.
they're not going to be offended. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. The difference between talking to a recruiter and a CD is, I went into it kind of asking for advice on my book when I talked to creatives, but then I asked for advice of the industry as a whole, and more of, like the culture and the environment, and, how, like,
The role, like entry level, how your role would,
exactly, like what they look for entry level, like all that stuff, because they're the people who do the recruiting. So,
yeah.
making sure that you have like 20 questions. You're not going to get to ask 20 questions. You'll probably get to ask like 4 or 5, but just have a lot of questions. and ask the recruiters and ask the creative people about your book. And that's how I went into it.
That's fantastic. Charlotte, thank you again so much for taking the time to do this. Any parting, either last words of advice, other things that you think would be great advice to give, and or like what are you excited about in terms of next steps? Obviously, you're hoping to hear back from some of these interviews and informational interviews, hopefully starting your networking.
Yeah, so some last words I would say, and what I'm excited for is I'm excited to, get my hands dirty, be hungry in the industry and not just as a student, and really learn. Like I just am super excited to. I've loved this for so long, and I'm super excited to, be in it and be doing it in the real world. So that's what I'm excited for next steps wise. And last advice I would say is be yourself. Like don't try to,
It's
you
great.
know, don't try to be anyone else. Like just like creative people they're funny, like they're chill. They're not like you're not walking into like a bank, like you don't have to be nervous. Like it's fine. The two questions I asked people at the end, like were not advertising related just because it's something I asked my friends, and it's what's your favorite color and what's your favorite word, and it helps me just get to know people a little bit better. And yeah, I just do that because I've always done that in my life, and I was like, well, that's me, so I'm gonna do that. And it really helped. And then in all my emails I would like color code the emails, and I'd be like, oh, I know your favorite color. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is
Yeah.
so cool. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
it was fun. Yeah.
Charlotte, you're amazing, and you're just going to do so well. I think with everything you're learning exponentially. And to anybody out there looking or recruiting, checking out this Noobs podcast, Charlotte is the real deal. I can attest. So, just
You.
that growth you've had in the last year is awesome to see. So, you're gonna rock it. So,
Thank you.
just
I
be
appreciate.
patient. Be patient for the right opportunity will come.
Yes, that's also another piece of advice is be patient.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Charlotte.